Here's another Bible quiz designed to test your Bible knowledge. There'll be 3 rounds, each with 10 Bible quiz questions. The rounds will get progressively more difficult, with round 3 containing a few challenging questions, and there'll be a bonus question at the end for personal reflection. Ready? Let's go. Here are 10 easy questions. Question 1. What did God tell Abraham to sacrifice on Mount Moriah as a test of his faith? Was that a goat, a ram, a lamb, or his son Isaac? The answer is his son Isaac, but a ram was provided as a substitute offering. Question 2. How many sons did Jacob have? Was that 3, 7, 12, or 13? Jacob had 12 sons. Question 3. Who delivered the interpretation of Pharaoh's dream about 7 years of plenty followed by 7 years of famine? Was that Daniel, Solomon, Samson, or Joseph? That was Joseph. Question 4. Who saw a burning bush that was not consumed and heard God speak from within it? Was that Jacob, Moses, Joseph, or Aaron? That was Moses. Question 5. On what mountain did Moses receive the 10 Commandments? Was that Mount Sinai, Mount Ararat, Mount Carmel, or Mount Zion? The answer was Mount Sinai. Question 6. Who defeated Goliath? Was that Samson, David, Saul, or Solomon? That was David. Question 7. Who was the first official king of Israel anointed by the prophet Samuel? Was that Saul, David, Solomon, or Gideon? That was King Saul. Question 8. Which king was known for his wisdom and for building the first temple in Jerusalem? Was that Solomon, David, Saul, or Hezekiah? That was Solomon. Question 9. Where was Jesus crucified? Was that on the Mount of Olives, or at Bethlehem, Jericho, or a place called Golgotha? It was at a place called Golgotha, which means the place of the skull. Question 10. Which is the last book in the New Testament? Is that Jude, Hebrews, Revelation, or the book of James? That's the book of Revelation. Here are 10 slightly more challenging questions. Question 11. During the first of 10 plagues, which river was turned to blood? Was that the Jordan, Tigris, Nile, or Euphrates? That was the 10 plagues in Egypt, so it was the river Nile. Question 12. Who was Israel's leader after the death of Moses? Was that Aaron, Joshua, Caleb, or Phinehas? That was Joshua. Question 13. Which prophet used a parable about a lamb to confront King David about his sin with Bathsheba? Was that Nathan, Haggai, Obadiah, or Zephaniah? That was Nathan. Question 14. Which prophet called fire down from heaven to prove the power of God against the prophets of Baal? Was that Isaiah, Ezekiel, Elijah, or Elisha? That was Elijah. Question 15. What river was Naaman, the Syrian commander, told to wash in to cure his leprosy? Was that the Nile, Euphrates, Jordan, or the river Tigris? That was the river Jordan. Question 16. What king had a dream about a large statue that Daniel interpreted after receiving the meaning from God? Was that King Nebuchadnezzar, Belshazzar, Darius, or Cyrus? The answer is King Nebuchadnezzar. Question 17. Where did Joseph and Mary escape to with Jesus after a warning in a dream? Was that Samaria, Egypt, Galilee, or Judea? They escaped to Egypt. Question 18. Which gospel contains the parable of the Good Samaritan? Is that Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John? The answer is Luke. Question 19. What sea did Jesus walk on? Is that the Dead Sea, the Salt Sea, the Sea of Galilee, or the Mediterranean Sea? The answer is the Sea of Galilee. You could have also said the Sea of Tiberias. Have a look at John chapter 6, verse 1. Question 20. Who was the tax collector that became an apostle? Was that Matthew, John, Simon, or Judas? That was Matthew, who was also called Levi. Are you ready for the last round? Question 21. How many men did Gideon start with before God reduced his army to 300? Was that 5,000, 12,000, 22,000, or 32,000? Judges 7 verse 3 reads, Now therefore proclaim in the ears of the people, saying, Whoever is fearful and trembling, let him return and depart from Mount Gilead. So 22,000 of the people returned, and 10,000 remained. If 22,000 left, leaving 10,000, there were 32,000 to start with. Question 22. With what did Samson use to kill 1,000 Philistines at Lehi? Was that a sword, a jawbone, fire, or a sling? The answer was a jawbone. Question 23. When the nation of Israel split, which two tribes followed King Rehoboam, forming the southern kingdom? Was that Judah and Benjamin, Simeon and Levi, Ephraim and Benjamin, or Gad and Dan? The answer is Judah and Benjamin. Question 24. Who was the cupbearer to King Artaxerxes, who led the effort to rebuild Jerusalem's walls? Was that Ezra, Nehemiah, Zerubbabel, or Haggai? That was Nehemiah. Question 25. Who wrote the messianic prophecy that speaks of the Messiah's triumphant entry on a donkey? Is that Micah, Isaiah, Daniel, or Zechariah? These are all well-known messianic prophecies worth looking up if you're not familiar with them, but the one that speaks of the Messiah's triumphant entry on a donkey can be found in Zechariah chapter 9, verse 9. It reads, "Rejoice greatly, daughter of Zion. Shout, daughter of Jerusalem. Behold, your king comes to you. He is righteous and having salvation, lowly and riding on a donkey, even on a colt, the foal of a donkey." Question 26. What was the name of the scribe who wrote down the messages that Jeremiah had received from the Lord? Was that Gedaliah, Sariah, Pashur, or Baruch? The answer was Baruch. Question 27. Which disciples asked Jesus if he wanted them to call down fire from heaven to destroy a Samaritan village? Was that Peter and John, James and John, Andrew and Philip, or Thomas and Matthew? The answer is James and John, and Jesus rebuked them. Question 28. What was the name of the high priest's servant whose ear was cut off by Peter? Was that Malchus, Annas, Caiaphas, or Ananias? The answer was Malchus. Question 29. In which book is the verse, "God is love"? Can that be found in 1 Corinthians, 2 Corinthians, Galatians, or 1 John? The answer is 1 John, and well done if you knew it's 1 John chapter 4 verse 8. Here's the whole verse. "He who doesn't love doesn't know God, for God is love." Question 30. To whom did God say, "My grace is sufficient for you"? Was that Moses, Gideon, Paul, or Peter? God said this to Paul, and it's recorded in 2 Corinthians 12 verse 9. Here are the words of Paul as recorded in 2 Corinthians. "He has said to me, 'My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness. Most gladly, therefore, I will rather glory in my weaknesses, that the power of Christ may rest on me." Here are your bonus questions. What areas of weaknesses, if any, do you try to hide? And how do you think that God could work through these areas, displaying his power? If you've enjoyed this Bible quiz, there are more to try here. Thank you for watching, and grace and peace to you all.